The first time I met Camille, it was in the sterile brightness of a showroom, the air thick with the scent of expensive fabric and the faintest hint of desperation. She stood there, a vision wrapped in a silk robe, her back turned to me. I felt an inexplicable pull towards her, a magnetic allure that made my heart race. The robe slipped off her shoulder, revealing a glimpse of her flawless skin, golden and smooth. When she turned, her cat-like eyes met mine through the mirror, and I felt as if I was drowning in their depths.
"You're the stylist from Brazil," she said, her voice a slow, honey-thick drawl that sent shivers down my spine.
I nodded, my grip tightening around my tablet, the tool of my trade suddenly feeling inadequate in this moment.
"Camille," she introduced herself, stepping closer, the air between us charged and electric.
I already knew her name, of course. She was one of the stars of Paris Fashion Week, a goddess in the realm of high fashion, tall and statuesque, with high cheekbones that could cut glass. Her body was made for lingerie that barely concealed anything, and I felt a rush of heat as she leaned in slightly, her lips parting in a way that made my breath hitch.
"Alessa," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper.
"You're watching me," she said, a playful smile dancing across her lips.
I swallowed hard. "I'm studying the fit."
Her smile widened, and I could see the challenge in her eyes. "Good."
Just then, the head designer burst in, barking orders. "Alessa, come!" she snapped, pulling me back into the world of chaos and fabric swatches. I turned for one last look at Camille, who hadn't moved, her gaze still locked on me, a promise lingering in the air between us.
That night, an invitation arrived at my hotel. A small, square card, black with elegant handwriting that simply read, "Come to me." No name, just an address. I knew who it was from, and the thrill of it sent my pulse racing. The building was old, its stone walls draped in ivy, and as I stepped into the elevator, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. I adjusted my lipstick, smoothed my hair, my heart pounding with anticipation and a hint of dread.
Camille's penthouse was a sanctuary of opulence, filled with the scent of expensive candles and the cool night air wafting through open windows. She stood in the center of the room, barefoot and clad in a sheer black slip that left little to the imagination.
"You're fast," she murmured, her voice a sultry whisper. She took my coat, her fingers brushing against my skin, sending sparks of electricity coursing through me. Then she turned and walked away, expecting me to follow. I did, mesmerized by the way she moved, as if the shadows themselves were her companions. The bedroom was a realm of soft shadows and silk sheets, and when I stood in the doorway, breathless, Camille approached me, her intentions clear. "You came for something," she whispered, her fingers tracing my wrist, sending shivers down my spine. "Maybe," I replied, my voice barely audible. Her lips brushed against mine, and I could taste the wine on her breath, mingled with something floral and intoxicating. Just as I leaned in, the sound of something shifting outside broke the moment. Camille pulled back, her expression shifting to one of concern. "Did you lock the door when you came in?" she asked, her eyes narrowing. I frowned, confusion washing over me. A gust of cold air swept through the room, the curtains fluttering ominously. I turned to glance at the balcony, and there it was, a shadow, lurking just beyond the glass. When I looked back, Camille was smiling, but there was something unsettling in her gaze. "You should stay," she whispered, and I felt the weight of her words settle over me like a shroud. The next day, Camille invited me to a mansion hidden in the hills, a place that exuded power and wealth. "Who owns this place?" I asked, unease creeping into my voice. "A friend," she replied, her smile enigmatic. The house was eerily quiet, devoid of life and laughter. It felt like a tomb, the air thick with secrets.
She led me into a room filled with vintage lingerie, black lace, silk, blood-red satin. It was beautiful and decadent, and I felt drawn to it.
"You should try something on," she suggested, her fingers deftly unzipping my dress, the cool air sending goosebumps across my skin.
As I stood there, exposed and vulnerable, Camille kissed my neck, her hands warm against my chill. But then her lips froze, and I felt her gaze shift behind me.
"What is it?" I asked, my heart racing. She was staring at the mirror, her expression shifting from desire to fear. I turned to look, and what I saw made my blood run cold. My back was bare, but in the glass, long, dark fingers rested on my shoulders. I spun around, but there was nothing there. Just Camille standing too close, her smile now tinged with something darker. "You're imagining things," she whispered. But I felt the weight of something sinister lurking in the shadows, watching us. Days passed, and I found myself losing touch with reality. I kept seeing Camille, losing myself in her intoxicating presence, but something felt off. She never spoke of her past, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something beneath her skin, something waiting to emerge. The night of the fashion gala arrived, and I was gifted a stunning gown, long, black, and backless. "A gift," Camille said, her voice sultry as she slipped into a white silk dress that clung to her body like a second skin. At the party, people stared at her, some with admiration, others with fear. "You never told me," I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Who owns the mansion?" Her fingers slid up my spine, sending shivers down my back. "Why does it matter?" she replied, her tone dismissive. But then an older man approached us, his face carved from stone. He grabbed my arm, his grip firm. "Come with me," he insisted. I pulled away, confusion flooding my senses. "Excuse me?" His gaze flicked to Camille, a warning lurking in his eyes. "She's not what you think she is." Camille's grip on me tightened, her nails digging into my skin. "Ignore him," she hissed. The man leaned closer, his voice low and urgent. "You need to run, now." I felt the world tilt on its axis, the party fading into a blur around me. I should have listened to him, but the allure of Camille was too strong. That night, I returned to her penthouse, but it felt different, too empty. The lights flickered ominously, and the air was thick with a stale, oppressive weight. I stepped inside, the sound of my heels clicking against the marble echoing in the silence. A noise, an eerie whisper, came from the bedroom, beckoning me closer. I pushed the door open, and there she was, lying on the bed, wrapped in silk, her eyes closed. She looked too still, too serene. "Camille!" I called, my voice trembling. Her eyes opened, but they weren't hers. They were black, endless voids that swallowed the light. And then I felt it, a hand emerging from the sheets, ice cold and gripping my wrist, pulling me down into the darkness. I screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the void. And Camille just smiled, a knowing smile that promised I was never alone. Because she had never been alone. And now, neither was I. In that moment, I understood the price of desire. The cost of seduction in a world where beauty masked something far more sinister. The shadows that danced around us were not mere illusions. They were alive, hungry, waiting for their chance to consume. And as I was drawn into the depths of that darkness, I realized that I had become a part of Camille's world, a world where the line between pleasure and horror blurred, leaving nothing but an intoxicating, chilling allure